Flavia Püschel. I'm an associate professor at FGV Direito SP, and I'm here today to interview Professor Esteban Restrepo, associate professor at the Law School of the Universidad de los Andes in Bogotá, Colombia. Welcome, Professor. Thank you for agreeing to answer a few questions for us. I'd like to begin by asking you about the course you're teaching. So you came here to teach a course on the political economies of sex and gender. Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes, thank you, Flavia. Well, the idea came after many years of teaching courses on feminism and law and sexuality. And it came as I felt a little bit unsatisfied by many of the theories I was reading and the activism as well, in the sense that what I saw was a lack of connection between activism based on identity and theories based on identity and what the socioeconomic consequences or background of those claims were being made. And I started thinking more and more about what we refer as neoliberalism, particularly in Latin America. And that is connected as well to many of the region's political dynamics, in the sense that in the last 20 years we've had many governments on the left. Although they are very different, I think they have a commonality, and it is that they all oppose something called neoliberalism. But it seems to me that they understand by neoliberalism very different things. And I tried to connect these critiques of neoliberalism, political critiques of neoliberalism, of the damages neoliberalism was producing in Latin America, and the activism and certain claims made by peculiarly women and LGBT collectives. And I felt they never have, with the exception of certain women claims, they never make a connection between the socioeconomic claims of leftist governments and what they are doing. And I began thinking if many of those claims, the way they were being made, particularly individualistic, particularly not connected to the socioeconomic background, were contributing to extend and legitimize what we call neoliberalism. In the sense that many of those claims were based on very individual ideas of justice, and not trying to transform the socioeconomic backgrounds. And so I began reading about work that was being done in Latin America, especially by feminists, on feminist economics and feminist critiques of the economy in the last, let's say, 10 years, particularly women's mobilizations in Argentina since 2000, and in the 2000s, after the crisis, at the start of the millennium, many women's groups began to be much more concerned about what neoliberalism was doing in their country. And therefore I try to connect those things in this course. It's just intuitions I have of themes that I want to connect. And I thought it was a great opportunity to come here and try to discuss it with the students. So this is perhaps not the version I would offer of this course in some years, but I think it is started to make sense, and probably I'll text some things out in further versions of the course, but it has been really fantastic of having the opportunity of discussing these issues here in Brazil with the students.
Very interesting. I read your syllabus and I thought it's very interesting. And as someone who works with private law, I was particularly interested in the topic about the role of debt and the consolidation of current global capitalism. Could you explain what this role might be and its relationship with gender?
Yes. I think I got it. It is not my idea, but it is because of the work of colleagues, basically in Argentina and Puerto Rico, in the sense that I believe that because of the peculiarities neoliberalism has had both in Argentina and Puerto Rico, women have had to think about how the work of social reproduction is today tied to the financial system. And it has been the work of Verónica Gago and Lucy Caballero, basically. I follow the work in the sense of that today they say the social reproduction now produces indebtedness, which is something that many economists and people on the left would have never thought. Generally, when we talk about neoliberalism, we pay attention to other activities, but not to the basic activity of social reproduction, where basically women do the work. And so, and on the other hand, in the Caribbean, the case of Puerto Rico, with the measures of fiscal austerity, their colonial status, and then being hit by 2 hurricanes, which basically destroyed the island, made the financial situation of Puerto Ricans very, not only of the country, but of people. They had to depend their livelihood on indebtedness. So this connection, I think, both the Puerto Rican feminists and the Argentine feminists have created just a great field of feminist economics that should be paid attention to, where indebtedness. They are not the only ones thinking. I think there's a trend in Italian neo-Marxism about the role of debt plays in constructing humanity, and that capitalism works by indebting people, basically, that there are differences from the capitalism of the late 19th century based on production, but capitalism has shifted to more being based on consumption and the financial system. What the feminists of the Caribbean and basically Puerto Rican feminists and Argentine feminists has been connecting these trends in neo-Marxism and bringing them into the field of social reproduction, in reproductive activities, domestic work, and I found that fascinating.
It is. And
the other thing is that generally we think about neoliberalism and feminism and all those causes in usual areas of the law, like constitutional law or international human rights law. But I do believe there's a very interesting possibility of using other areas of the law to think about these issues. And private law, I mean, they are bringing private law into the connections between the social reproduction and the activities of social reproduction in private law.
Right. And finally, how does the questions raised in your course relate to your research work?
Well, that's for a number of years, my main field of research have been the relationships between law and violence, because of the situation in Colombia, since at least 2005, when we began talking more formally about what we call transitional justice. First with the paramilitary in 2005, and then during all the years where the agreement between the Colombian government and the FARC was being negotiated. So transitional justice is a big thing, and so that led me to think more deeply about the relationships between law and violence, as a critique, as trying to counter a little bit the idea that law by in and of itself, when it's there, produces peace, but it could make things worse, actually, or being an instrument of violence. And talking about that led me to think that this also has a political economy, that law works in the midst of a political economy, and that probably the relationships between law and violence, in order to be understood more clearly, need to be connected to how the economy works. And therefore, this whole work is connected in the sense that for many years I thought economic issues were very boring, or talking about that. But I think they are key to understanding the relationships between law and how it produces social change, and try to connect that a little bit more.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
again. And it was lovely talking to you.
It was lovely talking to you as well.